This video was brought to you by Squarespace. What's that? You need a website, but you don't know how to build one? Well, I, probably shouldn't be telling you this, but, come here. Have you considered Squarespace? I needed to build my website, Arlo recommends, and Squarespace fixed me up real quick. I grabbed one of their basic templates, and using their intuitive editor, I created the whole thing myself, with zero coding knowledge and zero prior website building anything. And it's just as easy to make content for. I can format text easily, embed images and videos and anything else I want, and I can even automate the posting process so my posts go out and push to social media without me even lifting a finger. If I ever need more, Squarespace offers lots of powerful extensions, as well as very convenient analytics so I can keep tabs on how my content is doing. To try out Squarespace for yourself, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. Then when you're ready to launch, head to squarespace.com/Arlo to save 10% off your first website or domain. And now for today's recommendation, Cosperry. This guy animates scenes from Seinfeld and Columbo and some other stuff, only he's turned the characters into animals in the style of Don Bluth, and it's bafflingly perfect. Everything about it. I have no idea how it's so perfect. It's such a specific intersection of his interests, and it's so entertaining. Thanks again to Squarespace. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta, see a guy about a video. You! Feels good to be back here. So next month we'll see the release of Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door. And, yeah, I'm still having a hard time believing it myself. And as a quick aside, I really love how they're just using the original name. No HD, no remastered, nothing like that. In my original Remaster Thousand-Year Door video, I argued that the game is of such high quality they could probably just package it like a regular new game and it would still do well. And it seems they've decided to go that route. Have you noticed that they rarely seem to mention that the game is a remake? Very interesting. So we're coming close to the game's release, and it's got Paper Mario fans all abuzz. Nintendo keeps putting out new footage and screenshots for us to drool over. It seriously looks incredible. It's shaping up to be another one of those perfect modernizations that brings the experience up to modern standards while keeping the spirit of the original entirely intact, much like Metroid Prime Remastered. We're so fortunate, I can't believe it. I can't wait to play it. But, you know, more than anything, I can't wait for other people to play it. For other people to finally experience the game that I would personally say is my favorite single piece of Mario-related media. I know I shouldn't overhype it, but just personally, the amount of sheer joy I felt when I first played it on release cannot be measured. And if it can hit anyone else in even almost the same way, even half as hard, that will be great. Be a really good thing. But as we've talked about, Thousand-Year Door being remade isn't simply a case of us finally getting an official re-release of an old game that's difficult and expensive to get your hands on. This isn't something to be celebrated just because we like to be able to play games that we like. No, it represents something so much bigger for the Paper Mario series itself. Paper Mario fans have been on a long and arduous journey for the last 20 years, yada yada. After Thousand-Year Door launched in 2004, Nintendo got it in their heads that, for whatever reason, the series had to drastically change. Even when other series, most other series were allowed to stick to their roots, Paper Mario was cursed with a strange need to continuously reinvent itself. These reinventions have seen mixed results. Every single Paper Mario game has its fans, yes, even Sticker Star. Each game has its merits. Any reasonable person can see that. Even the latest original title, Origami King, which was met with a wave of criticism and angry internet discourse, even more intense than the one created by Color Splash, and that's really saying something, has a tremendous number of fans. The game gets a lot right, and in some ways, I will admit, even pushes the series into exciting new places. But as with every modern title, it also features extremely divisive concepts that many fans, myself included, simply cannot tolerate, or tolerate reluctantly. And wherever you stand on each individual game, That's not a good place for a series to be. Constantly argued about, constantly disappointing longtime fans, constantly missing the mark in key areas. Even considering those who have been happy with Origami King or any of the other modern titles, the majority opinion is still that the formula was at its best 20 years ago. The first two games were the only two games in the series to be received with nothing short of unanimous praise. That was the only formula that felt close to perfect, that ticked the most boxes and made the most people happy. So, naturally, fans like me have been wishing for the series to return to those roots. But with each new game, that has seemed less and less likely. In some ways, the games have inched closer to those original titles, mainly in how they handle characters and story. But in other ways, they've only doubled and tripled down on strange limitations and a stubborn refusal to utilize any elements that you might find in an RPG. Now, to Nintendo's credit, remaking two older Mario and Luigi games, that was pretty cool. Gotta give them that. Those games are RPGs and have original characters and whatnot, though by Nintendo's own admission, Mario and Luigi being an RPG series was one big reason why Paper Mario couldn't be one anymore. And even if the remakes retained much of their charm, they were also kinda sanitized, many of their more interesting NPCs replaced by generic Mario baddies. So in that way, they felt a little less like victories and more like Nintendo digging even deeper into this weird new realm of blandness. And then, around the release of Origami King, there was the interview. Oh, what a dark, dark day in Paper Mario history. Kensuke Tanabe, on that day, revealed that the reason newer Paper Mario games lacked unique races and interesting representations of pre-existing ones was that those things weren't allowed anymore. This was not just a creative choice on his part. Apparently, some mysterious IP protection department within Nintendo, for whatever reason, deemed it against the cardinal laws of Mario to deliver something that just about all Paper Mario fans across the board unanimously considered one of the most important things about the original games. Paper Mario fans disagree on a lot, but when it comes to story and characters, it's a no-brainer. It's the one single thing we can all agree on. But apparently that literally wasn't allowed anymore, and to me, that interview was the final nail in the coffin. With Nintendo insisting that Paper Mario literally can't feature interesting original characters, and with Tanabe insisting that each game has to have some wild new combat gimmick, regardless of how convoluted and frustrating this makes the games, I finally decided that there was no hope for Paper Mario to ever return to those roots. This was something I just had to stop actively believing might happen someday. That hope took too much energy to maintain, and the continued disappointment hurt too much. That hope pretty much died with Color Splash, but if there was a tiny spark still burning, Origami King in that interview snuffed it out for good. The Paper Mario I loved was never coming back. But apparently, behind the scenes at Nintendo, something was happening. I have to imagine they realized that these weird creative limitations were only hurting them. I have to imagine they realized how staunchly ignoring the requests of their paying customers was a slightly weird thing for a company to do. I have to imagine they got a little tired of each game sparking enormous controversy. Like I've said before, that is not a normal, healthy thing for a business. That's not the kind of attention you want your game to get. I can imagine it's extremely off-putting for newcomers. But whatever happened, maybe a big meeting between the creative directors at the company, maybe a shift in producers, maybe an impassioned speech by Koizumi standing on a desk. I don't know. Whatever the case, something changed. 3 years later, all of a sudden, Nintendo decided to give us not one, but 2 remakes of Mario's most highly regarded RPGs. Even just Super Mario RPG, that was huge. But Thousand Year Door, too? I mean, Mario RPG, it's a classic, it's so old, it was originally an SNES game, it doesn't really play into the whole creative limitations thing, right? Is that why Nintendo is willing to remake it, even if it breaks all the rules? No, Thousand Year Door, that's a whole different story. That is the forbidden game. The one everyone talks about, but Nintendo pretends doesn't exist. The most creative, out there, weird, rule-breaking Mario game there ever was. And if you look at the timeline, I would not be surprised if both games were greenlit immediately after the release of Origami King. The timing is just too perfect. It feels so deliberate. Either this is Nintendo caving and giving us what we've been asking for, or dipping their toe back into more creative Mario RPGs to test the waters, or maybe a combination of both. And if this is a test, the results are very promising so far. The Super Mario RPG remake, which was also given its original straightforward name with no remake-related branding, I might add, sold over 3 million units in just the first 6 weeks. We haven't gotten any updated figures since then, but there is a good chance that it's already outsold Origami King and is on its way to being the highest-selling Mario RPG ever. And now we've got Nintendo marketing Thousand Year Door like it's a new game, not trying to capitalize on nostalgia, not advertising it like a new version of an old experience. No, just putting it right on out there with full confidence. And I will not be surprised if it ends up performing well too. Ah, but wait, there is even more to this story. I've been wanting to make this video for a while now, but one thing finally gave me that push I needed. You might have heard that there's a certain survey going around. It seems that Nintendo is asking people some questions about Mario RPGs. Very specific questions regarding things like partners and game mechanics. Now, this is obviously great news, but I wouldn't blame you if a little shiver slid down your spine upon hearing the word survey in a Paper Mario related video. Paper Mario War veterans all know that a survey, much like this one, was potentially responsible for the series being entirely stripped of all meaningful story and characters. To dredge up that whole thing one more time, when asked about Super Paper Mario after release, allegedly less than 1% of respondents mentioned caring about the story, which led Miyamoto to decide if Paper Mario doesn't need a story, why should we give it one? We still don't know how this happened, and we will probably never know. The story is generally what everyone loves about the first Paper Mario games, Super very much included. I have to imagine it had something to do with the demographics of the people receiving and taking that survey. I don't know. Paper Mario historians will be pondering this until the end of time. And yes, there is a chance something like that could happen again with this new survey. It seems it's only being sent to people in the UK at the moment, and we don't know if it'll hit other territories at all. We also have no idea how many people have received it. There is technically a chance that we will get similarly skewed results, but I'm trying not to think about that at present. I'm focusing instead on the fact that right now, Nintendo is listening to Mario RPG fans. No, they're not just listening. They are asking. They want to know specifically, in no uncertain terms, what their audience thinks about all these things we've been arguing about for years. We've spent nearly 2 decades screaming at Nintendo about things like partners and game mechanics and all that, hoping that someone up there hears us. And now they are actively seeking these opinions. It's dreamlike, it's unprecedented. And this, combined with the Super Mario RPG and Thousand Year Door remakes, well, that paints a very bright picture. I once had no hope that we would ever get another traditional Paper Mario game in the style of the first 2 again. But now, things have changed. The state of Paper Mario has changed. And now we can officially say, we can say with complete confidence that yes, there is hope for Paper Mario. I want to shout it from the mountaintops. Oh, it feels so good to say it and to mean it. There is hope for Paper Mario. There is hope for Paper Mario. Oh, I just can't believe we're here. I can't believe this is the world we now live in. We came from such a dark place, but now there is light We have hope again, and it feels good. And of course, it almost goes without saying, hope for Paper Mario isn't just hope for Paper Mario, but RPG Mario as a whole. Because Mario and Luigi deserves to come back as well. The remakes performed poorly, largely thanks to launching on the 3DS when the system was being massively overshadowed by the Switch, and Alpha Dream was shut down as a result. Mario & Luigi is a terrific series that also needs more games, and also something of a creative return to roots, I would say. And Mario RPG? What if instead of a simple remake, this modernization paved the way for a sequel, or even a whole series? I mean, I get it, Nintendo kind of painted themselves into a corner, creating 3 different Mario RPG series, and I can understand why they wanted to turn Paper Mario into something different. But apparently RPG Mario is just a winning formula. Sorry you made too many amazing games, Nintendo. And new traditional entries in any of these series would be huge wins. Now, of course, we can't get ahead of ourselves. We don't know what Nintendo will do next. If Thousand Year Door outsells Origami King, that will work out in our favor, but maybe it won't. And if it doesn't, where will that leave us? And whatever the case, Nintendo giving us these old games and asking us for our Mario RPG opinions doesn't necessarily mean that they're looking to return Paper Mario to its roots. They might still feel that each new game needs some sort of weird gimmick. Maybe the characters and story will return, but the gameplay will still be divisive. Or they'll make it a turn-based RPG again, but still skimp on the story and characters. Or maybe we'll get another totally off-the-wall new thing, kind of like the jump from Thousand Year Door to Super. We just don't know. But the hope is there. There is a chance that we will get a true Paper Mario 3 someday. And that is enough for me. Just knowing that there's at least a teeny tiny chance that it's technically possible that these remakes are paving the way for an epic, new, traditional Paper Mario on the next system. It's all I need for now. It's all I need. Feels good. Feels good to be back where it all started. Ugh. 2016 Arlo was a slob. The ground's covered in chips.